Kate Morgan stared at her phone screen, the glow illuminating her exhausted face in the dimly lit apartment. The refrigerator's persistent hum seemed louder tonight, perhaps because it was nearly empty. She glanced at the twins, Zoe and Zach, sleeping peacefully on the pull-out sofa, their tiny chests rising and falling in perfect synchrony. At just 4 years old, they had no idea how dire their situation had become. With trembling fingers, Kate typed out the grocery list: milk, eggs, bread, peanut butter, apples, chicken thighs, pasta, tomato sauce, cereal, baby wipes, and children's fever reducer. The last item made her heart clench. Zoe had been running a low-grade fever since yesterday. Kate had been stretching her last dollars for weeks, and tomorrow's paycheck from the diner wouldn't arrive until after rent was due. Just get through tonight, she whispered to herself, a mantra that had carried her through the past 2 years since the twins' father had walked out of their lives. She scrolled through her contacts, looking for Maya, her neighbor, who occasionally helped with childcare and had offered to pick up a few essentials on her way home from work. Kate's vision blurred with fatigue as she tapped on a contact and quickly composed a message. "Hey, hate to ask again, but could you grab these on your way? I'll pay you back Friday, promise. The twins are almost out of everything." She attached the list and hit send before setting her phone down and collapsing into the apartment's only armchair. The response came almost immediately, startling her. Strange, Maya usually worked late shifts at the hospital. Kate's confusion turned to horror as she read the message and realized her terrible mistake. The text wasn't from Maya at all. It was from a number she hadn't seen in years, but instantly recognized. James Walker, the twins' father, and her ex-boyfriend. The man who had disappeared when she told him she was pregnant. The man who had gone on to become one of the country's youngest tech billionaires, while she struggled to keep their children fed and housed. "Kate, is that you? Are these our children you're referring to?" The phone slipped from her grasp and clattered to the floor. How could she have been so careless? James's contact should have been deleted long ago, but in the chaos of single motherhood, she'd never gotten around to it. And now, after years of silence, of pretending the twins were hers alone, he knew. Kate picked up the phone with shaking hands, unsure how to respond. Before she could decide, 3 dots appeared, indicating he was typing again. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she waited. "I'm sending you money right now. Check your account in 10 minutes. We need to talk." Kate felt the room spin. Talk? After 2 years of complete silence, she typed and deleted several responses before settling on a simple, "There's nothing to talk about." She hadn't expected him to respond so quickly. "I disagree. I just looked you up." "Those are my children, aren't they? The ones you never told me about." Kate's indignation flared. "Never told you? I told you I was pregnant. You said, and I quote, 'That doesn't work with my 5-year plan,' and blocked my number the next day." The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before his next message came through. "That's not what happened." Kate laughed bitterly, the sound harsh in the quiet apartment. "I lived it, James. I think I remember." "Check your account," was his only response. With a sense of dread, Kate opened her banking app. Her hands flew to her mouth to stifle a gasp that might wake the twins. There it was, a pending transfer of $500,000 with a note that simply read, "For the twins." $500,000. It was more money than she could comprehend, more than she would earn in 10 years at the diner. It could change everything. A real apartment with separate bedrooms, quality daycare, healthy food, new clothes that weren't from thrift stores, maybe even college funds. But it could also mean something far more terrifying. James Walker wanted back into their lives. As if reading her thoughts, another message appeared. "I'm flying to Chicago tomorrow. I want to meet them." Kate's protective instincts surged. "No, you don't get to abandon us and then waltz back in because you feel guilty." "It wasn't like that, Kate. Please, just meet with me, hear me out." "Why should I?" His response came quickly. "Because there's something you don't know, something that explains everything." Kate scoffed. What could possibly explain abandoning his pregnant girlfriend and never looking back? But curiosity, and perhaps the faintest flicker of their old connection, made her hesitate. "One meeting," she finally replied. "Just you and me. The twins don't know you exist, and it's going to stay that way until I decide otherwise." "Fair enough, the Peninsula Hotel, noon tomorrow. I'll have a private dining room." Kate looked over at her sleeping children, their innocent faces illuminated by the streetlight filtering through thin curtains. Zoe's cheeks were still flushed with fever. Kate had been their entire world for 4 years, protector, provider, comforter. The thought of James disrupting the fragile stability she'd created filled her with dread. But $500,000 was sitting in her account, and despite everything, a tiny part of her had always wondered what had happened to transform the struggling, passionate programmer she'd loved into the cold, distant man who had abandoned them, and then into the tech wunderkind whose face occasionally graced business magazines at the supermarket checkout. Fine. Noon tomorrow, she typed, then added, "But I'm not keeping this money unless your explanation is really damn good." The next morning passed in a blur. Kate called in sick to the diner, dropped the twins at Myers with profuse thanks and a gift of groceries she'd managed to pick up with a small withdrawal from the miraculous deposit, and stood now in front of her closet, realizing she had nothing appropriate to wear to a luxury hotel. She finally settled on the black dress she'd worn to her mother's funeral 3 years ago, the last time she'd had occasion for formal attire. It was a bit loose now. The stress of single parenthood had whittled away at her once healthy frame. She pulled her auburn hair into a neat bun and applied minimal makeup, refusing to make too much effort for the man who had abandoned her at her most vulnerable. As Kate approached the gleaming tower of the Peninsula Hotel, she felt wildly out of place among the well-heeled guests and attentive staff. She gave James's name at the restaurant podium, and the host's demeanor shifted instantly from polite to deferential. "Mr. Walker is expecting you, Miss Morgan. Please follow me." She was led to a private dining room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago skyline. And there he was, James Walker, looking even more polished than his magazine photos suggested. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his tailored suit probably cost more than her annual rent, and his familiar green eyes locked onto hers the moment she entered. For a brief, disorienting moment, Kate saw Zach in his face, the same determined jaw, the same slight furrow of concentration between the brows. The resemblance she'd always deliberately ignored hit her with full force. "Kate," he said, her name carrying a weight of emotions she couldn't decipher. He moved as if to embrace her, then stopped himself, extending a hand instead. "Thank you for coming." She ignored his hand. "You said you have an explanation. I'm listening." James gestured to the chair across from him. "Please sit. This isn't a conversation we should have standing." Kate hesitated, then took the seat, perching on its edge like a bird ready for flight. "I have exactly 1 hour before I need to pick up my children. Our children," he corrected softly. "No," Kate said firmly. "Mine. You forfeited any claim to them when you disappeared." James flinched, pain flashing across his face. "That's what I need to explain. I never disappeared, Kate. I never abandoned you or our children." She laughed incredulously. "Really? Because the last 2 years of struggling alone while you became a billionaire suggest otherwise." "Kate," he said, leaning forward with an intensity that made her pulse quicken despite herself, "I never knew you were pregnant. I never blocked your number, and I certainly never said anything about a 5-year plan. Someone else did." Kate stared at him, speechless, as he reached for his phone, and I think I know who. Kate's mind reeled as James placed his phone on the table between them. The sleek device displayed a series of text messages, conversations she'd never seen before. "What is this supposed to be?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Evidence," James replied, his expression grave. 2 years ago, I never received a message telling me you were pregnant. Instead, I got this." He slid the phone closer to her. Kate reluctantly looked down at the screen. There, in what appeared to be her name, was a message that made her blood run cold. "I can't do this anymore. I need space to figure things out. Please don't contact me again." "I never sent this," she said immediately, looking up at him with widening eyes. "I know that now," James said. "But at the time—" His voice trailed off, and he ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, momentarily disrupting its order. For an instant, he looked more like the struggling programmer she had known rather than the polished billionaire sitting across from her. "At the time, it destroyed me." Kate shook her head, struggling to process what she was seeing. "If I didn't send this, who did?" James's jaw tightened. "Thomas." The name hit Kate like a physical blow. Thomas Reed had been James's business partner when they were developing their revolutionary data security software. He had also been James's closest friend since college. "Why would Thomas—" Kate began, but as she spoke the question aloud, pieces started falling into place. Thomas had always been protective of James, sometimes excessively so. He had made comments about Kate being a distraction when James needed to focus on their company's launch. But this level of interference seemed unimaginable. The company was days away from our first major investment round, James explained, his voice tightly controlled. Thomas had always been driven, but I didn't realize how far he would go to ensure nothing derailed our plans. He swiped to another screen, showing her more messages, this time between him and Thomas. Kate read with growing horror as the conversation revealed Thomas's calculated deception. He had somehow intercepted her messages to James and sent fake responses from James's phone to her. Then he had blocked her number from James's phone while making it appear to her that James had done the blocking. "He told me you wanted a clean break," James continued, watching her face carefully, "that you had realized our relationship was moving too fast and needed space. He convinced me that respecting your wishes meant not chasing after you." Kate felt ill. "So all this time you thought I didn't want you in my life? That I chose to keep the twins from you?" James nodded slowly. "I was heartbroken, but I threw myself into work. The investment came through, then another, and suddenly we were growing faster than we could have imagined. I buried myself in 18-hour days, traveled constantly for meetings with investors and clients." His green eyes clouded with regret. "It was easier than dealing with losing you." "But how did you never see me around? Chicago isn't that big," Kate argued, still struggling to believe his story. "I moved to San Francisco shortly after what I thought was our breakup," James explained. "Thomas convinced me it was the right move for the business. Silicon Valley connections, better investment opportunities." He let out a bitter laugh. "I see now he was making sure there was no chance of us running into each other." Kate felt anger building inside her, not just at Thomas, but at James too. "You didn't think to verify any of this? You just accepted that I would cut you off without explanation?" James's expression tightened. "You don't understand what it was like, Kate. We were working around the clock, barely sleeping. The company was everything to me after losing you. And Thomas—" He paused. "Thomas was like a brother. I never imagined he would lie about something so important." "So what changed?" Kate demanded. "Why are you here now, 2 years later?" James's expression softened slightly. "Thomas is out of the picture. 6 months ago, I discovered he had been siphoning company funds into personal accounts. When confronted, he tried to blame it on accounting errors, but the evidence was irrefutable. The board removed him immediately." "That doesn't explain how you found out about us," Kate pressed. "After Thomas left, I hired a new executive assistant who was organizing my personal accounts. She found recurring payments to a digital security firm dating back 2 years. James leaned forward, his voice intensifying. "I investigated and discovered Thomas had hired them to monitor your social media, track your location, and—" He hesitated. "Intercept any attempts you might make to contact me." Kate felt a chill run through her. "He was spying on me?" "On both of us," James corrected. "Keeping us apart. When I uncovered this, I had my legal team investigate further. That's when we found all the intercepted messages, including—" He paused, swallowing hard. "Including the one where you told me you were pregnant." The weight of what she was hearing pressed down on Kate. All this time she had believed James had callously abandoned her and their unborn children. She had struggled through a difficult pregnancy alone, worked until she went into labor, and spent countless nights wondering how the man she had loved could have changed so drastically. Now she was being told it had all been an elaborate deception orchestrated by someone they had both trusted. "Why would he do this?" Kate whispered, more to herself than to James. "Control," James said simply. "With you gone, I poured everything into the company." Thomas guided every decision, positioned himself as indispensable. His expression darkened. "Our success made him wealthy beyond imagination, but apparently not wealthy enough." Kate stared out the window at the Chicago skyline, trying to process everything. The city looked different from this height. Problems smaller, patterns clearer. Was that what was happening now? Was she finally seeing the truth from a new perspective? "I need proof," she said finally, turning back to James. "More than just text messages that could have been fabricated." James nodded as if he had anticipated this. "I have the report from the digital security firm Thomas hired, detailing every message intercepted. I have sworn statements from my former assistant who witnessed Thomas deleting your calls from my phone logs, and I have this." He produced an envelope from his jacket pocket and slid it across the table. Kate opened it with trembling fingers and found a handwritten letter. "Thomas wrote this after he was forced out," James explained. "He was bitter, angry at being caught. He wanted to hurt me one last time by revealing what he'd done, thinking the knowledge that I'd missed the first years of my children's lives would devastate me." His voice grew quieter. He was right. Kate read the letter, each vindictive word confirming James's story. Thomas boasted about keeping them apart, about watching Kate struggle from afar, about ensuring James would never know about his children. The letter exuded malice and betrayed a disturbing obsession with controlling James's life. When she finally looked up, tears were streaming down her face. 2 years, she whispered. 2 years of struggle, of thinking you didn't care, of raising our children alone. Her voice broke. James reached across the table, hesitating before gently placing his hand over hers. "I can't get those years back, Kate, for you or for the twins. But I want to be part of their lives now, if you'll let me." Kate withdrew her hand, the anger she had carried for so long warring with this new understanding. "It's not that simple, James. You can't just appear with a bank transfer and expect to become their father overnight. They don't know you. I barely know who you are anymore." "You're right," James conceded. "I'm not asking to rush anything, I just want a chance." Kate studied his face, searching for the man she had once loved. He was still there, beneath the polished exterior and the weight of success. But there was something else too, a depth of pain and regret that matched her own. "The money," she said suddenly. "Why so much?" James's expression softened. "It's a start. Child support for 2 years, plus what I would have provided had I known. It's not meant to buy forgiveness, Kate. It's meant to make things right, at least financially." Kate thought of all the times she had gone hungry so the twins could eat, of the medical bills she still owed, of the future she feared she couldn't provide for her children. "And if I take it," she asked carefully, "what are your expectations?" "No expectations," James replied. "Just one request. Let me meet them. After that, we take it one day at a time." Kate was about to respond when her phone buzzed. It was Maya, sending a photo of the twins playing with building blocks, their faces alight with concentration. Zoe's fever had broken, and they were asking when Mommy would be back. Looking at their innocent faces, faces that bore such striking resemblances to both her and the man sitting across from her, Kate knew her next decision would change all their lives forever. 3 days had passed since Kate's meeting with James, and her world had tilted on its axis. The money remained untouched in her account, a fortune that could solve every practical problem she'd faced since becoming a mother, yet it felt impossibly complicated to accept. She stood now in her tiny kitchen, watching the twins eat breakfast. Zach was methodically arranging his cereal in patterns before eating it, while Zoe chattered animatedly about a dream involving purple elephants. They were blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in their lives. Today was the day. James would meet his children for the first time. Kate had agonized over how to introduce him. She couldn't simply present him as their father. It would be too confusing, too sudden. Instead, she had settled on a half-truth, an old friend who had recently moved back to Chicago. The doorbell rang at precisely 10 o'clock. Kate took a deep breath, smoothed her hands over her jeans, and went to answer it. James stood in the hallway, looking simultaneously powerful and vulnerable. Gone was the impeccable business suit. He wore jeans and a simple blue button-down shirt. In his hands were 2 gift bags, one pink, one blue. "I didn't know what to bring," he admitted quietly. The store clerk suggested these. Kate stepped back to let him in, watching as he took in the small apartment with its mismatched furniture and worn carpet. If he was judging their modest surroundings, his face didn't show it. "Zoe, Zach," Kate called, her voice steadier than she felt. "Come meet Mommy's friend." The twins appeared in the doorway, suddenly shy in the presence of a stranger. James froze, his eyes drinking in every detail of their faces. Kate saw his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed hard. "Hello," he finally said, crouching down to their level. "I'm James. I brought you something." Curiosity overcame shyness, and the twins cautiously approached. Inside the bags they found stuffed animals, a lion for Zach and a tiger for Zoe. Simple gifts, not the extravagant presents of a billionaire trying to impress, but thoughtful choices for children he was just beginning to know. "What do you say?" Kate prompted gently. "Thank you," they chorused, already warming to the friendly stranger. "I thought maybe we could go to the park today," James suggested, glancing at Kate for approval. "If that's okay with your mom." The morning unfolded with surprising ease. At the park, James pushed the twins on the swings, helped them navigate the jungle gym, and displayed infinite patience as they showed him every rock and leaf that caught their attention. Kate watched from a nearby bench, a complex tangle of emotions knotting in her chest. He was good with them, natural, attentive, genuinely interested in their chatter. Occasionally, he would glance at her with an expression of wonder and gratitude that made her heart twist painfully. After lunch at a nearby diner, where James ate chicken fingers and French fries without complaint, they returned to the apartment for the twins' nap time. As Kate tucked them in, both clutching their new stuffed animals, Zoe asked drowsily, "Is James coming back tomorrow?" The innocent question hung in the air between Kate and James as she closed the bedroom door. "They like you," she acknowledged, leading him to the small living room. "They're incredible, Kate," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "So smart, so full of personality. You've done an amazing job with them." Kate felt tears threatening and turned away, busying herself with making coffee. "It wasn't easy." "I know," James said quietly. "And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for not being there." The sincerity in his voice cracked something open inside her. "I believed you abandoned us," she said, finally voicing the pain she'd carried for years. "I thought you chose your company over your own children." "If I had known," James began, then stopped himself. "But that doesn't matter now. What matters is what happens next." He hesitated before continuing. "I've been thinking about what that might look like." Kate handed him a mug of coffee. "And I want to be part of their lives, really part of their lives, not just a visitor or a distant provider." His green eyes locked with hers. "I've purchased an apartment in this neighborhood. I'm relocating Walker Tech's Midwest office to Chicago so I can be here permanently." Kate blinked in surprise. "You're moving your entire operation to Chicago? Just like that?" "The decision wasn't as impulsive as it sounds," James explained. "We've been planning to expand our Midwest presence for months. I simply accelerated the timeline and changed the location from Detroit to Chicago." He set down his coffee mug. "But yes, essentially, I'm restructuring my life around the twins, around all of you." The implications of his words hung in the air between them. Kate felt a flutter of something dangerous, hope, perhaps, or the rekindling of feelings she had forced herself to bury long ago. "There's something else you should know," James continued, reaching for his phone. "Something I discovered after our meeting at the hotel." Kate tensed, bracing herself for more revelations. James pulled up a series of photographs on his phone and handed it to her. They showed Thomas Reed, not in business settings, but following Kate through grocery store aisles, watching her from a car as she walked the twins to the park, even standing across the street from their apartment building. "These were on the hard drive of Thomas's company laptop," James explained, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Taken over the past 2 years. There are hundreds of them." Kate felt the blood drain from her face. "He was stalking us? Why?" "I think his obsession went beyond just controlling me or the company," James said grimly. "I believe he was fixated on you, on the life I might have had with you. My security team has been investigating, and they've found evidence that Thomas has continued monitoring your movements even after leaving the company." Kate's hands trembled as she scrolled through more photos. "Does he know you found me? That you know about the twins? That's what concerns me," James admitted. "I've taken precautions, hired security personnel who are discreetly watching your building, but I don't know how Thomas might react if he realizes his deception has been exposed." Kate looked toward the bedroom where the twins were sleeping. "You think he might try to hurt us?" "I don't know," James said honestly, "but I'm not willing to take that risk." Kate stood abruptly, pacing the small living room. "This is insane. 2 weeks ago my biggest worry was making rent. Now you're telling me some obsessed billionaire might be a threat to my children." "Our children," James corrected gently, "and I will do everything in my power to protect them, to protect all of us." The words hung between them, bridging the years of separation. Despite everything, there was still an undeniable connection, a shared concern for the twins that transcended their complicated past. "I think you should stay with me," James suggested cautiously. "My new apartment has state-of-the-art security. It would just be temporary until we're certain Thomas isn't a threat." Kate bristled at the suggestion. "Move in with you? A man the twins barely know? A man I'm not sure I know anymore?" "I understand your hesitation," James said. "But please consider it. If not for your sake, then for Zoe and Zach." Before Kate could respond, her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. She opened it, and her blood froze. Such a lovely family reunion. James playing daddy to the children he never wanted. How touching. Attached was a photo taken that very morning at the park. James pushing the twins on the swings, Kate watching from the bench. It had been taken from a distance, but the clarity was chilling. "He knows," Kate whispered, showing James the message. James's expression hardened as he read it. He immediately pulled out his own phone and made a call. "Security breach. Subject is in the vicinity. Implement Protocol Sierra immediately." He turned to Kate. "Pack essentials for you and the twins. We need to leave now." "What's happening?" Kate demanded, fear clawing at her throat. "Thomas is here in Chicago," James explained, his voice tight with urgency. "And based on that message, he's been watching us all day." Kate moved quickly to the bedroom, her mind racing. As she hastily packed clothes for the twins, a notification pinged on her phone, an email alert from her bank. She opened it and gasped. The $500,000 deposit from James had vanished. In its place was a transaction notice, funds withdrawn and transferred to offshore account. She rushed back to the living room, showing James the notification. "The money, it's gone." James's expression darkened further. "Thomas must have access to your account somehow. This isn't just about jealousy or control anymore." He looked her directly in the eyes. "Kate, I think he's been planning this for a long time. He's not just watching us, he's making a move." "What kind of move?" Kate asked, her protective instincts flaring. "I don't know," James admitted. "But given what we now know about his obsession with you and his resentment toward me..." He didn't finish the thought, but he didn't need to. A sound from outside the apartment door made them both freeze, the distinct click of a key turning in a lock that should only have had two keys, Kate's and the building manager's. James moved instantly, placing himself between Kate and the door. "Get the twins," he whispered urgently. "The fire escape. Go now." As Kate turned toward the bedroom, the door swung open to reveal Thomas Reed, his once handsome face twisted in a smile that sent chills down Kate's spine. "Well," he said smoothly, stepping into the apartment and closing the door behind him. "Isn't this cozy?" Thomas Reed stood in the doorway, immaculately dressed in an expensive suit that did nothing to disguise the coldness in his eyes. He looked between James and Kate with an expression of amused contempt. "I must say this reunion has been fascinating to watch," Thomas said, his voice deceptively calm. 2 years of careful planning, undone by a misdirected grocery list." He chuckled, the sound devoid of humor. "Life has such delicious ironies." "How did you get a key to my apartment?" Kate demanded, trying to keep her voice steady while positioning herself closer to the twins' bedroom. Thomas twirled a key ring around his finger. "Your building manager is remarkably accommodating when presented with the right incentives. I've had access to your apartment for quite some time." Kate felt violated, thinking of this man entering her home while she and the twins slept. James stepped forward, his posture tense but controlled. "What do you want, Thomas?" he asked directly. "Originally, to keep you focused on our company without distractions." Thomas gestured toward Kate. "Later, to watch over what might have been mine if you hadn't been in the picture." His gaze lingered on Kate in a way that made her skin crawl. "But now, I simply want what's fair." "Fair?" James repeated incredulously. "You lied to both of us for years. You separated a father from his children. You embezzled from our company. And now you've stolen money that was meant for those children's support." Thomas's expression hardened. "I built that company as much as you did, James. But who became the billionaire tech genius? Who got the magazine covers and the speaking engagements? Who's now being considered for a presidential advisory position?" he sneered. "You took everything while I was relegated to the background." "That was your choice," James countered. "You chose to commit fraud. You chose to manipulate people instead of creating anything worthwhile." A dangerous flash crossed Thomas's face. I'm not here to debate ancient history. I'm here to negotiate. Negotiate what? Kate asked, her hand reaching for her phone in her pocket. A clean slate, Thomas said simply. I have information that could destroy James, evidence of tax irregularities in the early days of Walker Tech, communications with certain less than reputable investors. Nothing that would hold up in court, perhaps, but enough to trigger investigations, enough to tank the stock price and ruin his precious reputation. James maintained his composure. You're bluffing. Am I? Thomas raised an eyebrow. Are you willing to bet your company on that, your relationship with these children you've just discovered? He glanced toward the bedroom door. By the way, they really do look like you, James. Especially the boy. The casual mention of the twins sent a surge of protective fury through Kate. She had been slowly typing a message behind her back, and now she pressed send, praying Maya would understand the urgency. What do you want? James asked again, his voice tight. 20% of Walker Tech transferred to an offshore holding company, reinstatement as Chief Strategy Officer, public recognition of my contributions to the company's success. Thomas listed his demands with the confidence of someone accustomed to getting his way. In exchange, I disappear from your lives. No more surveillance, no more interference. You get to play happy family without looking over your shoulders. And if we refuse? Kate challenged. Thomas smiled coldly. Then I release everything I have on James, and I continue to be involved in your lives. I've grown quite attached to watching Zoe and Zach grow up. The thinly veiled threat made Kate's blood boil. Before she could respond, a small voice called from the bedroom doorway. Mummy, who's that man? All three adults turned to see Zoe standing there, clutching her new tiger stuffed animal. Kate moved quickly to her daughter's side, picking her up. It's okay, sweetie. He's just leaving, she said firmly, glaring at Thomas. Thomas studied the child with unsettling interest. Hello, Zoe. I'm an old friend of your mommy and James. Don't speak to her, Kate said sharply, pulling Zoe closer. Thomas ignored her. I've watched you grow up, you know, from a distance. I was there on your first day of preschool. I saw when you skinned your knee at Lincoln Park last summer. James moved swiftly to stand between Thomas and Kate, holding Zoe. That's enough, Thomas. You need to leave. Now. Or what? Thomas challenged, his composure slipping to reveal the anger beneath. You'll call the police and tell them what? That the man who helped build your company has come to visit? That I'm making a business proposition? Nothing I've done here today is illegal. Breaking into someone's home is illegal, Kate countered. So is stealing $500,000 from my account, Thomas smiled. Prove it was me. The transfer went through a series of shells that would take years to unravel. As for the key, he dangled it again. Your building manager will confirm he gave it to me willingly. A soft knock at the door interrupted the tense standoff. Thomas frowned, moving to block the entrance. Expecting someone? He asked suspiciously. Before anyone could answer, the door burst open, knocking Thomas off balance. Two uniformed police officers entered, followed by Maya in her hospital scrubs. Chicago PD, announced the first officer, taking in the scene quickly. We received a report of breaking and entering and possible child endangerment. Maya rushed to Kate's side, reaching for Zoe. I came as soon as I got your text. Zach is still asleep, I checked. Thomas recovered quickly, straightening his suit. Officers, there's been a misunderstanding. I'm Thomas Reed, business partner of James Walker. He gestured toward James. We were having a discussion. Save it, the female officer interrupted. We've received multiple reports about you, Mr. Reed. There's an active investigation into stalking and harassment charges. Thomas blanched. What are you talking about? James stepped forward. My security team has been documenting Thomas's surveillance activities for weeks. They've submitted everything to your department. The male officer nodded. Mr. Reed, we're going to need you to come with us for questioning. This is absurd, Thomas sputtered. You have no grounds. Actually, James interrupted, pulling out his phone. We've been recording this entire conversation. He played back Thomas's admission of having entered the apartment illegally multiple times. Thomas's face contorted with rage. You set me up. No, James said evenly. You did this to yourself. As the officers led a protesting Thomas away, Kate sagged against the wall in relief, still holding Zoe tightly. Is the bad man gone? Zoe asked innocently. Kate smoothed her daughter's hair. Yes, sweetheart. He's gone, and he won't be coming back. I'm sorry, Maya said, looking between Kate and James. When I got your text about someone breaking in, I called 911 immediately. Thank you, Kate said sincerely. You may have saved us. After Maya left and Zoe had been settled back in bed with her brother, Kate and James sat in the living room, the adrenaline of the confrontation slowly ebbing. It's really over? Kate asked, still finding it hard to believe. James nodded. Thomas will face charges for stalking, breaking and entering and financial fraud. My legal team will make sure of it. He hesitated. The money he took, I'll replace it immediately. That's not what I'm worried about right now, Kate admitted. What are you worried about? James asked softly. Kate looked toward the bedroom where the twins slept. Where do we go from here? How do we explain to them who you are? How do we build something that makes sense after everything that's happened? James considered her questions carefully. One day at a time, he finally said. We can start with the truth, a simplified version for now. That I'm their father, that I didn't know about them until recently, that I want to be part of their lives. And us? Kate asked, the question she'd been avoiding finally spoken aloud. What about us, James? He met her gaze directly. I never stopped loving you, Kate. Even when I thought you had chosen to leave me, I couldn't erase what we had. He reached for her hand cautiously. But I don't expect you to pick up where we left off. Too much has happened. I just want a chance to earn your trust again. Kate didn't pull her hand away. I don't know if I can trust anyone after this. I understand, James said, but I'm not going anywhere. Whether we find our way back to each other or simply become co-parents who respect each other, I'll be here. The sincerity in his voice touched something in Kate that had been walled off for years. She had survived alone, had built a life for her children against impossible odds. She was stronger now, more cautious, but also more certain of what mattered. We'll take it slowly, she finally said, for the twins' sake. James smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes and reminded her of the man she had fallen in love with years ago, for all our sakes. 6 months later, Kate stood in the kitchen of a spacious apartment overlooking Lincoln Park. Through the window, she could see James pushing the twins on the swings, their laughter carrying across the distance. After Thomas's arrest and subsequent conviction for financial crimes and stalking, life had settled into a new rhythm. James had kept his word, moving his company's Midwest headquarters to Chicago and creating a schedule that allowed him to be present for the twins. He had been patient, never pushing for more than Kate was ready to give, content to rebuild their relationship one careful step at a time. The twins had adapted to the changes with the resilience of childhood, accepting James as their father with a simplicity that sometimes made Kate's heart ache. They now split their time between Kate's new apartment, purchased with the restored funds, and James's place nearby. As Kate watched James with their children, she felt the last of her walls beginning to crumble. They had been through counseling, both separately and together, working through the trauma of their separation and the betrayal they had experienced. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worthwhile. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. Dinner tonight after the twins are asleep, just us. Kate smiled, typing back, Yes, I think it's time. Time to finally talk about the feelings that had been rekindling between them. Time to consider not just co-parenting, but perhaps building a true family together. Time to trust again. As she watched James scoop up both laughing children in his arms, Kate realized that sometimes life's most painful detours led to the most beautiful destinations. A misdirected grocery list had changed everything, bringing back not just financial security for her children, but the possibility of a love she had thought was lost forever.